He wasn't a celebrity, he wasn't a politician, he wasn't rich, but to the people who knew him, Terrance Williams was everything. He was a son, a brother, a mentor, a friend. He made people feel safe. He made kids laugh. He believed in hard work and second chances. He was just 27 years old, with a future he was building brick by brick. And then, one ordinary night, he vanished. Not into the wilderness, not into the ocean, into thin air, into silence. It was January 24th, 2004, Naples, Florida, a place where life moved gently, a beach town with white fences, quiet roads, and the illusion of safety. That night, Terrance had been out, a co-worker's party, just a few drinks, a few laughs, nothing wild, nothing dangerous. He left around 1:30 a.m. in his white Cadillac DeVille, a little run down, but it was his. He said he was heading home. He never made it. And Terrance wasn't the type to disappear. He was the type who showed up early, the type who checked in, who answered his phone. So when his mom, Marcia, didn't hear from him the next day, something inside her broke open. She knew, before the police, before the searches, before the headlines, she knew something was wrong. On January 26th, she filed a missing person report. 2 days later, Terrance's car turned up. Not at his apartment, not in a parking lot, not at a gas station. It had been towed from a cemetery. The location alone was chilling. A cemetery? Why would his car be there? But it wasn't just where, it was how. The car wasn't found abandoned. It was removed by law enforcement. The deputy who called for the tow was Deputy Calkins, a name that would become burned into the case like a scar. He claimed the car was illegally parked, blocking traffic, that no one was inside, that it seemed abandoned. He filled out a tow report, a sloppy one, missing key information, and that was that. But something didn't add up. There were no fingerprints on the car except Terrance's, no signs of struggle, no blood, no damage. But it was dead, the battery drained, the engine silent. There was no wallet, no phone, no keys, no Terrance. It was like someone had vacuumed the life right out of it. Then came the contradictions. Calkins said he never interacted with Terrance, never met him, never saw him, but phone records said otherwise. He'd run Terrance's license plate, called in his details, even radioed dispatch. Later, he admitted Terrance had been in the car, that he'd given him a courtesy ride to a nearby Circle K gas station. But that Circle K had no surveillance footage, no witnesses, no trace. Calkins's story had changed, and now there were two timelines. One in ink, one in truth, and only one could be real. But the most chilling part was this. It had happened before. 3 months earlier, in the same town, the same deputy had encountered another man, Felipe Santos, a young immigrant, undocumented, working construction, trying to keep his life together. He got into a minor accident on the way to work. Calkins arrested him. That was the last time anyone saw Felipe alive. Calkins said he dropped him off at a gas station. Sound familiar? 2 men. Same age, same height, both men of color, both stopped by the same deputy, both vanished. What are the odds? Back in 2004, the world didn't have social media the way it does today. No X threads, no true crime podcasts dissecting every second, just a mother's voice, Marcia Williams. She started putting up posters, calling the sheriff's office, holding prayer vigils, begging anyone to listen. But weeks turned to months, and the silence grew louder. Calkins kept his badge. No charges were filed, no body, no case. That was the logic. Without a corpse, without blood, there was nothing to hold on to. Just shadows, just suspicions. Then came the polygraph. Calkins agreed to one. The results were inconclusive. That should have meant something, but it didn't. Instead, he kept working, driving the same streets, wearing the same badge, watching the same community pretend that nothing had happened. But Marcia didn't stop. She kept pushing. She filed complaints. She screamed on the news. She begged for help. And eventually, something cracked. Calkins was fired, not for murder, not for disappearance, but for policy violations. For lying, for changing reports, for being a cop who couldn't keep his own story straight, but still, no charges. Time passed. The world moved on. But the question remained. How can a man go missing while in contact with a deputy, and no one is held responsible? Years later, the story began to resurface. A Dateline episode, a few national interviews. People started asking again, where is Terrance Williams? Who was really in that car? And then came Tyler Perry, the actor, the producer. He heard about the case. He met with Marcia. He listened. And then he did something that no one else had done in years. He made it public. He offered a $100,000 reward. He put up billboards. He forced people to see the name Terrance Williams again. And just like that, the silence cracked. Suddenly, people remembered. Suddenly, reporters cared. They asked questions that had never been answered, like why Calkins gave so many different versions of what happened, why there was no documentation of a ride, why the car was towed hours after Terrance supposedly left it, why no other deputy was called, why the Circle K cameras didn't catch anything, why the phone records didn't match, why Felipe Santos had disappeared under nearly identical circumstances, why two men, two families, were still waiting. And the truth is, those questions still have no answers. Marcia still lights candles every year. She still attends vigils. She still tells Terrance's story like it happened yesterday, because to her, it did. Time didn't dull the pain, it sharpened it. It turned it into something unrelenting, a flame that refuses to go out. The community still remembers him. His school established a scholarship in his name. Students still mention him in prayers. His old co-workers still shake their heads when his name comes up, not in disbelief that he's gone, but disbelief that justice never followed. There's a hole in Naples, Florida, not in the ground, in the air, in the silence, in the places people used to feel safe. It is the kind of hole that can be patched over with a news article or a press release. It's the kind that lingers, that grows teeth, that whispers when no one's listening, because the truth is, Terrance didn't vanish. Someone made him disappear, and someone still knows how. There are cases that fade over time, cold files stacked in forgotten drawers, collecting dust as years blur into memory. But the disappearance of Terrance Williams didn't fade. It burned. It stayed alive not because of the system, but because of a mother who refused to let silence win. Marcia Williams had no badge, no lawyers, no task force. She had her son's smile, and she had her voice, and she never stopped using it. But what she was fighting wasn't just grief. It was something heavier. It was the feeling that the people who were supposed to protect her son had failed him, and not by accident. Because by now, the name Felipe Santos had crawled out of the shadows. His face appeared next to Terrance's on news reports, on billboards, in the minds of everyone who couldn't explain away the odds. Two men, gone without a trace. Same deputy, same strange claims, the same gut punch of injustice with no consequences. Felipe's story had always been in the margins. An undocumented immigrant, 24 years old, a husband, a worker, a man with responsibilities and dreams. He was arrested by Calkins after a fender bender on the way to work. That was the last time anyone saw Felipe alive. Calkins said he dropped him off at a gas station, the same excuse he'd used with Terrance. But Circle K had no footage, no witnesses, no sign that Felipe had ever been there. Sound familiar? It should have been enough to trigger an investigation. It should have been enough to scream pattern, but it didn't. Not in 2003, not in 2004, not in the years after. Instead, Calkins kept working, kept driving the streets of Naples in uniform, with the weight of 2 lives hanging from his belt like his gun. When he was finally fired, it wasn't because of Felipe. It wasn't because of Terrance. It was because he lied, because he falsified reports, because he couldn't keep his story straight. Not even under oath, not even when it mattered. But even after his firing, Calkins remained untouched. No charges, no trial, no justice. And for Marcia, that became the second tragedy. She didn't just lose her son. She lost faith in the very system that was built to protect him. Still, she pushed. She wrote letters, held rallies, sat in the pews of church after church, holding her son's picture against her chest like a shield. She built a website, launched a campaign. She refused to be silent, and slowly the world started to listen. Tyler Perry wasn't just a celebrity offering a donation. He became a voice, a spotlight. He met with Marcia face to face. He heard the pain that trembled beneath her strength, and then he took that pain and put it on billboards, national interviews, and across social media. A $100,000 reward was posted. Perry used his platform to say what no one else would say out loud. Something is very, very wrong here. And it was. More journalists started digging. More eyes reopened old case files. People who had once forgotten began to remember. Why did Calkins lie about making a phone call to Terrance when the records showed no such call? Why was there no footage from the gas station? Why did 2 men, completely unconnected, both vanish from his custody under identical circumstances? But even with all the noise, the legal system stood still. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement reviewed the case. The FBI dipped in and out. The Department of Justice declined to file charges. They all said the same thing. Not enough evidence, no body, no crime scene, no physical proof. But sometimes proof doesn't come in the form of fingerprints. It comes in patterns, in lies, in repeated behavior, in the fear that if it happened once, it could happen again, and again, and again. Calkins, for his part, never changed his story. Not really. He dismissed the accusations, claimed he was being set up, that he was a victim, that it was all political. But the smirk in his interviews, the ease with which he answered questions about 2 missing men, said something different. It said he didn't believe he'd ever be caught. And maybe he's right. As of now, Terrance Williams has still not been found. Felipe Santos has not been found. Calkins has not been charged. And the families have no graves, no closure, no peace. But what they do have is something far more powerful than silence. They have the world watching. They have people who believe. They have a story that refuses to die. Terrance's case has become a blueprint, a rallying cry for cold case reform, for accountability, for better training, better transparency, better oversight of those who wear a badge. His disappearance isn't just a Florida mystery, it's an American one. And it raises the kind of question that makes people uncomfortable. What happens when the danger doesn't come from the dark, but from the light? From someone sworn to serve and protect? That question continues to haunt Naples. It assesses in the eyes of every mother who sees a police cruiser and wonders if her son could be next. It's in the way people talk about Terrance, not in the past tense, but as if he's still here, because he is, in spirit, in memory, in the fire that Marcia refuses to let die. The community still remembers him. His school established a scholarship in his name. Students still mention him in prayers. His old co-workers still shake their heads when his name comes up, not in disbelief that he is gone, but disbelief that justice never followed. There's a hole in Naples, Florida, not in the ground, in the air, in the silence, in the places people used to feel safe. It's the kind of hole that can be patched over with a news article or a press release. It's the kind that lingers, that grows teeth, that whispers when no one's listening, because the truth is, Terrance didn't vanish. Someone made him disappear, and someone still knows how.